Hello, fellow aficionados. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. In a world drowning in noise, distractions, and chaos, the ability to think clearly is becoming a rare, almost mythical skill. How often do we find ourselves consumed by endless worries, doubts, and trivialities, forgetting the simple truth that the only thing we truly control is our mind? The teachings of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and a master of Stoic philosophy, cut through the fog of mental clutter with brutal precision. His timeless wisdom challenges us to confront the world's disorder by mastering our thoughts. But can we truly harness this power and achieve clarity in such a tumultuous world? The answer lies deeper than you think, right at the intersection of reason, simplicity, and self-mastery. Number 1. Detach from your ego, not your humanity. The greatest barrier to clear thinking is the ego. It's the part of you that craves validation, seeks approval, and reacts defensively when criticized. Marcus Aurelius understood that the ego distorts reality, making it difficult to see things as they truly are. When your ego is in control, every decision becomes personal. You're not weighing options based on logic or reason, you're filtering them through how they make you feel, or how they'll make others see you. To think clearly, you have to step outside of yourself. It's not about becoming emotionless, but about recognizing when your emotions are clouding your judgment. Your mind should act as a lens, not a mirror. It should clarify, not reflect back the noise of your insecurities or desires. The ego is loud, constantly telling you that your reputation, pride, and comfort are at stake. But those are illusions. They have nothing to do with reality. They are constructions of your mind. Marcus believed that the key to clear thinking was humility. It's the ability to accept that you don't know everything, that your perspective might be flawed, and that you are just one small part of a much larger world. When you let go of the need to be right, to be admired, or to win, your mind becomes free. You can see things as they are, not as you want them to be. Decisions become simpler, more objective, and far less emotional. That's when clarity emerges, not when you're protecting your ego, but when you're stripping it away. Number 2, master the art of brutal self-assessment. Self-assessment is one of the hardest things to do. Most people don't want to admit their flaws, let alone face them head-on, but Marcus Aurelius didn't shy away from this uncomfortable truth. He believed that real clarity of mind comes from brutal self-honesty. If you can't evaluate yourself truthfully, you'll always be blinded by your own delusions, stuck in a cycle of repeating the same mistakes. The mind thrives on illusions. It'll justify bad habits, sugarcoat failures, and twist reality to protect your self-esteem. But if you're serious about thinking clearly, you have to tear all of that down. Take the story of a once successful businessman named Peter. He ran a flourishing startup, and for a while things were smooth. But as time passed, his company began to falter. Instead of looking inward, Peter blamed the market, his employees, and even his clients. His ego wouldn't allow him to accept that the real problem was him. His poor decisions, lack of adaptability, and refusal to accept feedback. His mind was clouded by pride. It wasn't until he hit rock bottom, losing the company entirely, that he was forced to take a long, hard look at himself. When Peter finally faced his flaws, it was painful, but it was also liberating. He realized his judgment had been clouded not by circumstances, but by his refusal to admit his mistakes. He started rebuilding, but this time with a clear mind, free of the ego-driven need to always be right. His second business wasn't just more successful, it was grounded in a sense of purpose and self-awareness that made every decision sharper and more focused. The brutal self-assessment he had avoided for so long became his greatest asset. Like Peter, we all carry the potential to deceive ourselves. Marcus Aurelius knew that until you're willing to look at your thoughts, intentions, and actions without flinching, your mind will remain foggy. The process isn't comfortable. It requires admitting where you've fallen short and owning up to the parts of yourself you'd rather hide. But this discomfort is where growth happens. When you cut through the lies you tell yourself, you reach a level of clarity most people never experience. Your mind becomes sharper, your decisions become better, and life itself becomes easier to navigate. Number 3. Embrace chaos as natural law. Chaos is an undeniable part of life. No matter how much you try to control things, there will always be unpredictability. Things will go wrong, plans will fall apart, and people will disappoint you. Marcus Aurelius embraced this reality, and he taught that the sooner you accept chaos as natural law, the clearer your thinking will become. Most people waste energy trying to impose order where it simply doesn't exist, leading to frustration, anxiety, and confusion. The mind becomes overwhelmed with the impossible task of managing everything, but chaos isn't something to be managed. It's something to be understood. When you fight chaos, you're resisting the very nature of life. The world is messy, unpredictable, and full of variables you'll never control. But when you accept this, it changes how you think. You stop reacting emotionally to every unexpected event. You stop taking things personally. Instead, you develop a calm, rational perspective that allows you to adapt rather than panic. The mind becomes sharper, not because the chaos disappears, but because you've stopped wasting energy resisting it. Take everyday challenges, a missed flight, a bad meeting, an argument with a friend. Most people spiral into frustration or stress, desperately wishing things had gone according to plan. But Marcus would say this is wasted effort. Clear thinking comes from the realization that these events are simply part of the chaos of life. They aren't personal attacks or signs of failure. They're just life happening. By embracing this truth, you stop mentally wrestling with what you can't control. Your focus shifts to what you can do in the moment, allowing you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. When you see chaos for what it really is, an inevitable, unchangeable part of existence, you unlock a new level of mental clarity. You understand that life isn't supposed to be orderly, and that the only real disorder comes from your own mind when you resist this fact. Once you let go of that need for control, you stop getting tangled in unnecessary emotions, and your thoughts become more direct, grounded, and free of clutter. Chaos doesn't have to be your enemy. It can be the key to clearer, more focused thinking if you allow it to be. Number 4. Practice the death perspective. The thought of death can be unsettling for most people, but Marcus Aurelius viewed it as a tool for clarity. He constantly reminded himself that life is short and everything could end at any moment. While this might sound grim, it's not meant to inspire fear. It's a way to cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters. When you understand that your time is limited, the trivial concerns that usually dominate your mind start to fade away. Overthinking loses its grip because there's simply no room for it in the face of your own mortality. People waste so much time on things that don't matter, worrying about what others think, chasing status, or getting bogged down by minor problems. But when you keep death in mind, you're forced to see just how unimportant those things are. You stop sweating the small stuff because, in the grand scheme of things, it's all small stuff. What once seemed like a major problem or a source of stress becomes irrelevant when you realize how fleeting life is. This perspective sharpens your mind and frees you to focus on what's truly meaningful, your values, your actions, and the relationships that actually matter. Marcus knew that living with this constant awareness of death doesn't paralyze you, it does the opposite. It gives you a sense of urgency and purpose. You become more decisive, more intentional, and less likely to be derailed by distractions. Every decision becomes clearer when you think about how much time you have left. Why waste it worrying? Why waste it delaying the things that are important to you? The death perspective forces you to ask hard questions. If today were your last day, would you care about that petty argument? Would you waste time doubting yourself? Would you be as focused on impressing others? Most likely, no. You'd strip away the unnecessary and zero in on what truly matters. That's the gift of thinking with death in mind. It clears away the mental clutter and leaves you with a sharper, more focused mind. This is not about living in fear of dying, but rather living with the awareness that your time is precious. Marcus believed that by embracing this truth, you stop wasting time on nonsense and start living a life that's more thoughtful, deliberate, and ultimately fulfilling. Clarity comes when you remember that your time is limited, so you better use it wisely. Number 5, purge the what-ifs and focus on what is. Hypotheticals are a trap. Your mind can get stuck in endless loops of what-if, imagining countless scenarios that may never happen. Marcus Aurelius believed that clear thinking comes from focusing on what is directly in front of you, not on the endless possibilities that could unfold. When you let your mind wander into the realm of what if, you start to lose touch with reality. You create problems that don't exist and stress about things that might never happen. It's mental clutter at its worst. Most people overthink because they're constantly living in either the future or the past. They worry about things they can't control, regretting decisions they made or stressing over outcomes that haven't happened yet. This robs you of your mental clarity, pulling your focus away from what truly matters, the present. When you live in the what if, you give your mind permission to spiral into anxiety and confusion. But when you concentrate on the what is, you ground yourself in reality. Marcus would argue that clear thinking only happens when you narrow your focus to what's real and tangible right now. The present moment is the only thing you have any influence over. Future events are uncertain, and the past is already set in stone. By focusing on the here and now, you strip away the distractions that come with overthinking, and your mind becomes more focused, more deliberate. Take, for example, someone preparing for an important meeting. Instead of being consumed with thoughts like, what if I mess up? Or, what if they don't like my ideas? Marcus would suggest focusing on what you can do in the moment. Prepare your points. Think about what you can control, the facts, the information you can present, and your own behavior. Anything beyond that is wasted mental energy. The future will unfold as it will, and no amount of worrying about what if will change that. When you stay focused on the present, you free your mind from unnecessary stress. You allow yourself to act with clarity and intention, instead of being pulled in 1,000 different directions by scenarios that may never happen. The only thing that deserves your attention is what's real right now. That's where your power lies. And when you realize this, you unlock a level of clarity that can't be reached by worrying about the uncertain future or dwelling on the unchangeable past. Number 6, understand that you control nothing except yourself. One of the most liberating ideas Marcus Aurelius emphasized is that we control nothing outside of ourselves. The world is unpredictable, people are unreliable, and events will unfold however they want. The only thing you can truly control is your own mind, your thoughts, reactions, and actions. Most of the mental fog people experience comes from trying to control things that are simply out of their hands. They get frustrated when things don't go their way, anxious when they can't predict outcomes, or upset when others don't behave how they expected. All of this is a recipe for mental chaos. Marcus knew that once you understand this truth, once you accept that external events are out of your control, your thinking becomes much clearer, the clutter in your mind fades, and you begin to focus only on what you can influence, yourself. This shift in perspective changes everything. It stops you from wasting mental energy on things you can't change, like the weather, the economy, or how someone else feels about you. Instead, you put that energy into what you can change, your own attitude, decisions, and responses. Take a situation where someone wrongs you. Maybe a friend betrays your trust or a coworker undermines you at work. Your first instinct might be to obsess over why they did it, how unfair it is, or how to get back at them. But that's focusing on something you can't control, their actions. Marcus would tell you to shift that focus inward. You can't change what they did, but you can control how you react. Will you let it consume you, or will you take a step back, keep your calm, and move forward with grace? That's where your power lies. Clear thinking comes when you stop getting emotionally invested in things beyond your control. The world will do what it does. People will act as they will, but you always have control over how you respond to it all. This mindset not only clears your mind, but also makes you more resilient. You stop being tossed around by every external event, every setback, or every bit of bad news. Instead, you become a steady force, able to navigate life with clarity and purpose because your focus is on the one thing that truly matters: yourself. When you fully internalize this truth, you see that most of the stress and mental clutter in life is self-imposed. You've been worrying about things that were never in your control to begin with. Once you let go of that need to control everything outside of yourself, your mind becomes freer, sharper, and far more focused on what actually matters. Number 7. Strip away the noise, return to simplicity. Simplicity is the secret weapon of clear thinking. Marcus Aurelius knew that life gets complicated when we allow unnecessary distractions and choices to pile up, cluttering our minds. We fill our days with countless decisions, endless tasks, and unnecessary worries, making it nearly impossible to think straight. But when you strip away the excess and focus on the essentials, everything becomes clearer. The more you complicate things, the harder it is to find clarity. People often get caught up in overanalyzing situations, adding layers of unnecessary details, and obsessing over every small thing. This mental overload leads to confusion and stress because you're trying to juggle too much at once. But when you embrace simplicity, you give your mind room to breathe. You focus only on what matters, and that creates space for clear, rational thinking. Take decision-making as an example. Many people spend hours agonizing over choices, big or small, because they overcomplicate them. They weigh endless pros and cons, worry about the smallest details, and let themselves get overwhelmed by the options. But Marcus would advise you to simplify. What is the most important thing to consider? What actually matters in the long run? By cutting through the noise and focusing on the core issue, decisions become easier and your mind becomes sharper. Simplicity isn't about doing less. It's about focusing on what truly matters. It's not about ignoring complexity, but recognizing when complexity is self-imposed. Most of the time, we create problems where there are none because we think more is better, more options, more analysis, more information. But Marcus Aurelius would argue that less is actually more. When you narrow your focus to the essential, you gain clarity, and clarity leads to better thinking and better outcomes. This philosophy applies to every aspect of life. Whether it's your work, relationships, or personal goals, the clearer you are about what's essential, the less you get bogged down by the trivial. Your mind becomes laser-focused on what actually moves the needle, and you stop wasting time on things that don't. In that simplicity, you find freedom. You let go of the unnecessary, and you focus on what really matters, giving your mind the space it needs to think clearly and act decisively. Number 8. See obstacles as mental exercises. When emotions take the driver's seat, clear thinking goes out the window. Marcus Aurelius understood that our feelings can be powerful distorters of reality, clouding our judgment and steering us away from rational decisions. Emotions, whether they're fear, anger, or even euphoria, can overwhelm the mind and make it difficult to think clearly. When you're caught up in strong emotions, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture and make decisions based on temporary feelings rather than solid reasoning. Consider a common scenario. You receive criticism at work. Initially, you might feel a surge of anger or defensiveness. Instead of reacting impulsively, which can lead to heated arguments or rash decisions, Marcus would advise stepping back and examining those feelings. Anger can make you focus solely on the offense, blinding you to constructive feedback that could be valuable. Fear might paralyze you, making you avoid necessary risks or changes. Even excitement can lead you to overlook potential pitfalls because you're so caught up in the thrill of the moment. Marcus's wisdom is to create a mental buffer between your emotions and your actions. This doesn't mean suppressing or ignoring your feelings. Rather, it's about recognizing when they're influencing your thoughts and decisions. By acknowledging this, you can pause and reassess your situation with a clearer, more objective perspective. It's about understanding that while emotions are valid, they are not always reliable guides for making decisions. For example, if you're feeling anxious about a major life decision, like changing jobs or moving to a new city, your anxiety might push you towards indecision or avoidance. But if you can recognize that this anxiety is clouding your judgment, You can take a step back and evaluate the decision based on facts and logical reasoning rather than just your emotional state. Learning to manage emotions means giving yourself the space to think clearly. It involves practicing mindfulness, reflecting on your emotional responses, and then making decisions based on a balanced view of reality. By not letting emotions dictate your actions, you maintain control over your decisions, ensuring they are guided by reason rather than fleeting feelings. This approach doesn't eliminate emotions but rather uses them as a signal to pause and reconsider, leading to more thoughtful, effective decision-making. Understanding and applying Marcus Aurelius' principles for clear thinking isn't just about intellectual exercise, it's a practical tool for living a more focused, meaningful life. By embracing the reality of chaos, recognizing the limits of your control, and stripping away unnecessary complexities, you free your mind from distractions and emotional turmoil. The result is a mind that sees things more clearly, makes better decisions, and lives with greater purpose. These teachings offer a timeless blueprint for cutting through the noise of modern life, helping you navigate challenges with a calm, rational perspective. Embrace these principles, and you'll find that clarity is not just an ideal, but a practical reality, waiting to be achieved. If you found this exploration into the principles of Marcus Aurelius and clear thinking enlightening, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to bring you more content that dives deep into timeless wisdom and practical advice. Hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more insights that can transform the way you think and live. Thanks for tuning in, fellow aficionados. Take care and bye.